wheel.
So assumptions. So what are they? So an assumption is an idea or a proposed meaning that is taken for granted, as if it were fact. The assumptions do not consider all of the facts. However, we can mistake them for truth if we are not careful. Kind of like stereotypes. Alright? So if we have a look here on the right, I think it's Beyonce.
Yeah,
This has been photoshopped. This is the image you see. Right? So you make the assumption that she's that beautiful all of the time. The original image is here, and you can see it's been photoshopped. So that's a real basic assumption we make when we look based on people's appearance. Alright? So you see, like for example, a big, athletic, muscly dude, you kind of look at it and you go, oh, great to be like that. But the assumption is that he hasn't had to work hard for that. Right? That's a real basic assumption. So let's just take that appearance assumption. Let's just take an academically successful person who gets ducks, right, at the school, the top academic award at high school. We see the award, we see the outcomes of all the excellences, but we don't see all of the stuff that goes on underneath that's hidden, that actually made him or made her that particular award, all right? So for you need to explore below the surface of assumptions that you find in the Paralympics, and I'm going to use an example here in a second. Let's see if that's all I need. Okay, that's it for that. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to use this negative of potential negative of the Paralympics as an example of how you might identify and talk about assumptions. So one of the negatives, and this comes straight out of that article, The Good and Bad Things About the Paralympics, which is in the teams. The Paralympics could be seen as, or anybody, a Paralympic athlete can be seen as being superhuman, overcoming the disability to compete at the Olympics. Now that actually on the surface can be seen as a positive because it can be inspiring for both non-disabled and disabled people. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Cool. However, that there is an assumption because we're looking now underneath the surface because there could be a negative of that. The negative is that it further stereotypes disability as a bad thing, something to overcome. Alright? So it's saying, oh, look at that bad thing you've got, your disability. You've worked hard to overcome it. And what it does is it further entrenches the belief that disability is abnormal. And it reinforces that thing we called ableism. Alright? Remember, ableism is there's a preference for your able-bodied people over disabled-bodied people. And that ableism creates a society that is not inclusive because all of the structures around us, seen and unseen, are made for able-bodied people. Ableism is based on an assumption. It assumes that there is a good body type and a bad body type. Okay, so you could talk about an assumption there. Do disabled people want to be people's inspiration porn? Now, I've put up a video on Teams of a lady called Stella Young who's disabled, and she's talking about, I don't want to be your inspiration porn. I don't want you to look at me and say, oh, look at you succeeding despite your disability. And you can watch that video, and that gives you some good insight into how you might use that in here. Also, straight out of that article, Good and Bad, this type of viewpoint about a disabled person overcoming or being superhuman, overcoming the disability to compete at the Olympics can be weaponized against normal, and I put normal in inverted commas, disabled people. And that's a quote straight out of that article. Look at them and you can't even get a job. Alright? This is like saying to a normal person, or not a normal person, a non-disabled person, why can't you be Lisa Carrington? Why can't you be Usain Bolt? This is where you can bring your experience of parasport. We played seated volleyball. Was it easy? So you could start talking about that. I've had a go at seated volleyball, and we did some training afterwards, and it was really hard. and therefore it's an assumption that anybody can just go out and become a para-athlete. There's another assumption. Make sense? Yep. Final part. How might this affect disabled people's confidence to get involved in physical activity? So remember, we've always got to bring it back to New Zealand society, which we kind of have a little bit here, but to really hammer the nail home, can you find research where this type of opinion about disabled people might affect their confidence to participate in physical activity? And if they're less physically active, why is that a negative for New Zealand? So you might do a little bit of research around that too. All right. So assumption one, just to recap, assumption is a belief without actually, and it's taken for granted, but it's not based on fact. The assumption in this one here was that it's always inspiring for everybody to see these people being seen as superhuman at the Paralympics. Assumption two is that ableism is based on an assumption that having a non-disabled body is better than having a disabled body. And assumption three down here is that it's easy to be a para-athlete. When is it? All right? And how might that assumption affect people's confidence to participate in physical activity with disabled people, and what's the negatives of that for New Zealand society? Okay, so you can use that sort of thought process if you want to. Once again, it just can't be those points just expanded. You have to go down your own kind of way of writing it.